Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series, Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today I am bringing you one of the two builds that I have yet to do from the entire Nancy Drew series. It's been my goal for quite some time now to do at least one build recreation from every single Nancy Drew game, and up to this point I have done every single game except The Captive Curse and Nancy Drew's Secret of the Scarlet Hand. But today, fellow detectives, we have completed Beech Museum from Nancy Drew's Secret of the Scarlet Hand, which is very exciting and means that I now only have one Nancy Drew game to do a recreation from, so I am very close now to meeting my goal. And honestly, I had so much fun doing this recreation of Beech Museum. I don't know why I was so intimidated by this build for such a long time. And part of it, I think, is I was just like building it up in my head, especially the pyramid part. Like, how on earth would I make the pyramid work? How would I make everything look good in The Sims? Because it's a museum building, so it's literally just one big box. And I sort of just decided to try and make things easier on myself, I think. And instead of making an exact recreation, I instead kind of just thought in my head, okay, what does Beech Museum look like? What does it have? What are the important pieces? And how could I make those look good in The Sims? So rather than doing what I've done in the past, which is look at screenshots of the game and try to find basically exact replicas of all of the items, of the wall color schemes, of all of those things, I more or less just did the floor plan of Beech Museum and the overall kind of vibes and feels of Beech Museum, and the color schemes and the items I chose myself. And I'm really happy with how that combination worked, because then I was able to really kind of be creative and make something that I feel like looks really good in The Sims. Like, I genuinely think this is a good looking museum. And I was also able to do a recreation. Like, I do also think that this looks and feels like Beech Museum, but with my own twist, with a twist that I feel like makes it look even better and makes it a really functional museum space and a really beautiful museum space in The Sims 4, still maintaining the character of the game. So I hope you all like it as well. I hope that you think that this recreation was successful also. This beginning part is really just kind of figuring out the main floor plan of the museum and getting in all of the required areas. I knew I needed to have the main exhibit area. I knew I needed to have Joanna's office, the entrance area, the lab, the storage room, and then the outside garden exhibits, and the pyramid in the middle here, which, as you can see, is not a functional pyramid, but is rather me playing around with platforms. And that's more or less the idea of this entire build, is that I just went wild with platforms. There are platforms everywhere. The entire build is on a platform because I wanted to have this really big, grand entrance to the front of the museum. Because I feel like every museum that or at least most of the museums that I have visited in real life, they have like these big architectural fun entranceways. Like, it's not just like, okay, here's the door. Like, they have fountains and plants and all sorts of things that really draw you into the space. And so I wanted to make sure I included that. So in order to do that, I decided to use a bunch of platforms, steadily getting bigger to use as stairs, and then some decorative ones on the side. And because I did that, it meant the entire build had to be on platforms. And then in order to build the pyramid, I also had to use platforms. That was honestly the only way I could think of making the pyramid sort of look like it does in the game. And again, it's not functional. It's not like the cool one in Secret of the Scarlet Hand, where you can go into the pyramid and do a bunch of puzzles, and then you get to descend like 3 floors down. It's just, I couldn't do that kind of thing in The Sims because we don't have split leveling in the game, which means that you can't have like half levels. You just can't make that work with walls and everything. It's not functional, so it's not a thing we can do. And I decided to work within my limitations and just make it more of a feature space, I suppose. It's almost more like a giant sculpture than anything else. One of the other things I was worried about was making all of the exhibits, because we don't have a ton of different things that would have looked like the exhibit items that we get in Nancy Drew's Secret of the Scarlet Hand. What we do have is the Jungle Adventure game pack in The Sims 4, which came with the world of Selva Dorada. And it is a kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of different Latin American countries and artifacts and histories. It's kind of its own made-up place. And I really went all out with everything Jungle Adventure. Like, this game is more or less base game and Jungle Adventure. There's definitely other packs. It is already up on the gallery too, so feel free to check it out if you have The Sims 4 as well and you want to download it. It is up on the gallery. My gallery ID is in the description down below. Make sure you click include custom content, even though this build and none of my builds that I upload have any custom content. Sometimes the gallery is just weird like that. But anyway, I uploaded this to the gallery so it is available as a museum lot, and I placed it in the world of Selva Dorada. I think Alejandro Del Rio would be very happy with us because I have kept the artifacts in the world where they came from. I did not transport them to a different Sims 4 world. They are still right here in Selva Dorada where they belong. So Alejandro, I think, would be quite pleased with that situation. There was initially a museum for this world, and when I loaded into it, it's the most boring thing ever. Like, I think they were trying to make it look like ruins, but it's on this giant 64 by 64 lot. There was like nothing here. There weren't archaeology tables, and everything on the inside of the museum was, it was just bland. It was practically empty. If you have The Sims 4 and you haven't checked out the museum lot, feel free to go load into that build and let me know what you think, because I loaded it and I was like, what on earth is this? So I'm really glad that I thought to replace that museum with the Beech Hill Museum, because again, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I feel like there are actually things that your Sims can go and look at and kind of get a museum experience. So now when my Sims go on vacation to Selva Dorada, they can actually kind of enjoy going to a museum and getting a look at the artifacts. And then if they feel brave enough, they can go into the jungle and look for the artifacts themselves. I was very happy with that idea, very pleased with how everything came together. Yeah, honestly, this might be the most pleasant recreation building experience that I have had thus far, making all of these recreations in the game. I'm still really happy with how all of my other recreations turned out as well. There was just something about this experience, and maybe it's because I just haven't built in The Sims in quite some time, and it was so nice to get back in. I do think most of it had to do with the fact that I just gave myself a lot more room to be creative with it without trying to match everything so specifically, because otherwise it would have taken me even longer, and this is already quite a long build. I do end up cutting out some of the landscaping of the outside so that the build didn't end up being over an hour long. It's gonna be close, but hopefully you all enjoy it. It's nice to have kind of a mixture of long builds and short builds in the game. I do plan on continuing to do Sims 4 recreations of Nancy Drew builds even after I have completed all of the Nancy Drew games. Like, I still want to do some of the smaller locations, and I've been doing that every once in a while. Like my last build, I did the Copper Fork from Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. I've done Maxine's Diner. I've done a few different small builds in different games in the Nancy Drew series. So I intend to continue doing that even after I have all of the games and all of the big locations completed. And I've been thinking about just other things to do on the channel as well. I have been thinking about playing some other mystery game series and doing walkthroughs for that. So if you have, I know I've gotten so many recommendations before, but this is a good place to kind of compile them. If you have recommendations for good mystery game series that you would like to see on the channel, or games like the Miss Clue series that aren't necessarily good but are funny to watch, that maybe we could stream or something, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of it. Is it a good game? Is it a game that's fun to make fun of? Give me your suggestions in the comment section, because I am curious about bringing some other kinds of content to the channel. Just kind of been pondering. And of course, we are getting to that time of year where the Nancy Drew Streamathon is going to be coming up very soon, and I'm so excited. I have just been dying to play some Nancy Drew, especially with you all. When we're not doing the streamathon, I honestly don't play the Nancy Drew games because I feel like it would be like cheating on you guys. Like, I'm now to the point where if I'm going to play a Nancy Drew game, I want to play it with my friends. It's not as exciting if I'm just playing it by myself. They're still amazing, obviously, but there's just something special about playing it with everyone else. And this year for the 2022 Streamathon, we kind of agreed at the end of the 2021 Streamathon that this year's Streamathon is going to be Chaos Nancy. It's going to be a chaotic stream every time, which means I will try and get all the second chances. I will have Nancy say the dialogue options that me as a goody two-shoes feel really bad saying, like the things that I usually wouldn't do. It's going to be a little painful for me, like getting demerits in Waverly or like the ending sequence in Ghost of Thornton Hall. Like, some of these things are going to be really hard for me, but I think it'll be fun too, because then I'll get to experience parts of the games that I maybe haven't gotten to see before. And I know some of you love to play the games chaotically, and that's kind of how you normally do play the games. So hopefully that'll be a fun time. I do also plan on the order for the streams being chaotic as well, meaning that I'm going to put all of the games into a random wheel spinner, and I'm going to just randomly generate the order that we play the games, because that's chaos. There's no order, there's no reason. It's just a random wheel spinner deciding our fate. So we're going to go with that. I think I'm going to try and stream relatively soon here. It is the first day of my spring break. And you guys, this is probably the most desperately I've ever needed a spring break, because let me tell you, work is crazy. It's been the most stressful kind of transition at work that I can imagine. At this point in time. I'm more or less, long story short, I'm being required to cover the caseload that would normally be required by me and another person. And I am now required to cover the entire caseload all by myself, which means that I'm working with a lot of kids, too many kids, way more kids than one person is able to handle. And that's pretty stressful for me, I'm not gonna lie. So very grateful that I am currently on my spring break. I do want to try and squeeze a stream in sometime over this break, and I figured at either the beginning or end of that stream is when we would kind of randomly generate the order of the 2022 Streamathon, and then I can start putting together a tentative schedule and hopefully share that with you all soon. So keep an eye out for that. Big things coming to the channel very soon. So this area outside is the beautiful garden space, and honestly, I think this space is probably the most true to Beech Hill Museum and how it actually looks, and I am so happy with how it turned out. I think it's gorgeous. I cut through a lot of the landscaping of that back area because honestly, it was really repetitive. It was me placing a lot of rocks and a lot of plants, and you'll see it in the walkthrough that we do at the end. I'm going to give you guys a little tour of the completed museum, so you'll get to see it then, but for now that was just kind of a little sneaky peek. And we are finally done with the outside of Beech Hill. So the exterior is completed at this point, all the landscaping is done. I did cut out some of that because again it was pretty repetitive. And I feel like most people are more interested in the interior anyway, because that's kind of the more detailed bits. That's where we're making kind of some more choices in actually getting the build to look like the completed version of what we want it to look like. So I decided to do kind of a nice little exterior to interior transition space. It's not a patio because it's totally closed off. I don't know what you would call it, an alcove? Would we call it an alcove? Either way, I really like how it looks. I think it's quite pretty. I use these Jungle Adventure lanterns all over the place, and I use these stones in the different patterns all over the place too, and I just loved the idea of that. My favorite thing when I go into museums is when they sort of try to immerse you in what the space would look like, like an assimilation of what the space would look like in real life. So if I go to a museum in Salvadorada, I would want to feel like I'm in a Salvadoradian temple. is kind of the idea. That's kind of what I mean when I say that. So I tried to add in fun little details, fun little decor, things that made it feel like a museum space too. So there's lots of seating everywhere. There's this check-in area, this desk at the front, little decorations and beautiful lanterns, just all sorts of things to fill in the space, make it look kind of beautiful. Again, there's this other little alcove area leading to the bathrooms. This feels really realistic to me as well. I don't know why so many spaces have this. I don't know if it's an architecture thing or maybe it's a plumbing thing, but I feel like a lot of places have kind of this gathering area before you go into the bathrooms. So I did that as well. There's a nice little seating area. And I had fun using kind of colors for the bathrooms that I wouldn't normally use. Like the bright yellow sinks I think are really pretty. I just wouldn't normally use them in like a sim house or something. But when you do a community lot, you can have a little bit more fun with these sorts of things. So we have two all gender bathrooms that your sims can use, one with 2 stalls and then another one with just a single stall. So a more accessible space. I like how that turned out. I think they look very realistic. I'm very happy with them. You may also notice too that this build has no windows whatsoever. And when I was thinking back to Beech Hill Museum itself, I'm fairly certain that most of that build also does not have windows. Like, I don't think the actual museum has many windows. And if it does, they are not very present. Like, we do not get very many glimpses of the outside world. And it worked well, honestly, for this build in The Sims as well, not to have to work around windows, because it is just a museum space, and I wanted it to feel more kind of like dark and eerie and historical. And one really good way to do that is to not have natural light and to just have kind of creepy lanterns all over the place. So yeah, that's what we do. I also have this storage area at the front. So like the custodians or the management staff, this is where they would get things that they need to kind of keep the museum running. I was going to put a vacuum in there, but I totally forgot. But things like that, like cleaning supplies, vacuums, brooms, polishing supplies, anything that they need to upkeep the actual guest areas of the museum, I figured would be in this little storage room, right next to the bathrooms to make for easy cleaning and stuff like that, and the entryways. So we have that there, finishing up the little alcove here. I kept the seating uniform throughout the space, so I used kind of the same colors and benches and chairs throughout the entire museum. This is something that I feel like made the space look better than it would have if I was trying to recreate exactly Beech Hill. So very happy with those choices. I know it's not an exact recreation, but yeah, I'm very pleased with it. So now we're moving on to Joanna Riggs's office, and this space I feel like looks pretty similar to what Joanna's office looks like in the game itself, even though I was just going off of memory. It's also quite large. It probably didn't need to be this big, but it would have thrown off the floor plan of the exhibit area if it wasn't this large. So yeah, I decided to make it pretty big, which means that there's a nice little sitting area on the other side of the room, which is actually how it is in the game too. But there is a archaeology table in here, so over in the area where Joanna would do some of her work, we have this authentication table that your Sims can use to get their archaeology skill up. Which is nice too, because if your Sims are here on vacation and they just need a nice space to come to and kind of like authenticate a bunch of artifacts, they could come to this space, this museum, without necessarily having to have their own archaeology table. Maybe your Sim is here on just a casual vacation and they went into the jungle once and they just found a couple of things. Like this way you can come to this space and not have to go through the whole process of becoming an adventurer, like the full gameplay of this pack. So yeah, that's kind of the idea of it, is that it's a nice museum place that your Sims can visit, whether they're on a casual vacation or if they are a more serious adventurer. Speaking of game packs, The Sims 4 My Wedding Stories has released. I haven't yet gotten it because I've been paying attention and I listen to all my YouTubers, and all the YouTubers that I watch, all the Sims tubers, have said that the game is very, very buggy. And just looking at the gameplay and having watched the live stream that the Sims team did, yeah, very buggy. Real buggy. So I am waiting until they release the pack fixes. They already do have them scheduled. They have 2, I believe, bug fix updates and fixes coming out soon. So I'm going to wait until I get that. I'm going to wait to get that game pack until I watch my Sims tubers that I trust and see when they replay the game after these updates if things are fixed enough. Because honestly, I don't want my Sims weddings to be so destroyed that they can't have good weddings still, because I can make decent weddings with the current constraints of the game. It's just, you know, you have to pretend a lot. It's very much like playing in a dollhouse. You have to kind of imagine, like, oh, okay, we're going to pretend this is a bachelorette party, even though it's not officially a bachelorette party. So yeah, but once I get that, I'm really excited to see the gameplay of that. I am thinking about maybe doing like a revamped wedding for Ned and Nancy. If you watched the LPND, Let's Play Nancy Drew little series that I did on the channel, Ned and Nancy did get married in that. They had a lovely wedding, but it would be kind of fun if the wedding pack actually worked to recreate it and see what that experience would be like. Those are my thoughts, at least. And the world looks really pretty. Honestly, the thing I want the most from that pack is the functional tea set. So excited that we're going to have a functional tea set. Oh my goodness, cannot wait. Probably the best thing in the pack. And I'm also really excited for all of the additional events, even just beyond the weddings. And I was excited that you can like set colors for your guests to come in. However, that feature currently does not work. So we'll see if they get that fixed, because I'm really excited for that feature and I really want it to work. So now we are moving on to the exhibit area, and I'm so pleased with how the exhibit area turned out. So what I did is I decided to have kind of 6 different areas exploring different areas of Salvadoradian culture, which is similar to the game, which is similar to Secret of the Scarlet Hand, in that there are kind of the 6 different areas. I believe there are 6 different exhibit areas that all have kind of different little themes, but they're more specific in Secret of the Scarlet Hand. And in The Sims, I decided to make them a little bit more broad and specific to Salvadorada, not necessarily the Mayan culture like we get in the game itself in Secret of the Scarlet Hand. So what I did is I have a section for the plant life of Salvadorada, a section for the animal life of Salvadorada, a section for weaponry and kind of like war, protection tools, that sort of stuff. I have a section for resources. I have a Pakal section, of course. How could we not have Pakal? And then I also have a section for time. I have the calendar and I have a sundial, and I really like how that little section turned out too. Here I'm just adding some embellishment to the pyramid part, just with some kind of architectural details, just to kind of make it look a little bit more dramatic and have a little bit more depth to it, so it looks more like a feature. It's too high up for your Sims to climb on it, but I do like to imagine like child Sims being able to kind of like run around and hide around the pyramid and climb up to the top. It's fun to imagine that they could do that. They can't, but it's nice to imagine that they could. You'll see me place these plaques all over the place. They're all the same plaque, like none of them look different or anything, but I thought they are just such an important item for a museum to look like, okay, this is something that your Sim can read and learn about the things that are in this particular area. That's pretty cool. So I liked adding that little detail, and basically every item that is in the Jungle Adventure game pack, I used somewhere in this build. If it's in the game pack, you can probably find it in this museum, including all the debug and all the hidden objects. And that's what you will kind of see me doing in this section, is just pulling out as many debug items as I can find and finding nice places for them to go. So like this back exhibit is the resources area, and I initially was going to put fossils here too, and I was like, wait, fossils are like the animal life of Salvadorada, so I can put those over in the animal section. And I found the fish plaques in debug, like the 3 fish that only come with the Jungle Adventure pack. There's like an electric eel, there's an armored carp, and then there's some other fish too. But I sized them up and I think it looks so good. Like it actually feels like a museum to me to have those big sized up kind of what's it called? It's like not sculptures, preserved kind of fish. I don't know. It just looks really cool. Models. They're models of fish. That's the word I'm looking for. And then I put the fossils over here, the golden frogs. I like to think that the golden frogs, they're artifacts, and they're extremely valuable artifacts, but I like to think that they symbolize all the different kinds of frogs that you could find in Salvadorada. I couldn't find any specific like actual frogs or bugs that only came with Salvadorada, so none of those are included. So it's the fossils, the fish, and then the golden frog statues. I do also use this dine out thing a couple of times as a reading plaque at times, to also kind of mimic that idea of like, oh yeah, this is a museum. This is what you would see in a museum space. I think the animal and the plant life exhibits are my favorite. I really enjoyed how they turned out. At times you're going to see me kind of accessing the gallery or trying to go into the gallery to find different things that I couldn't find before, like these plants. So I put the 4 kinds of plants that you could get in Salvadorada. There's an avocado tree, or three different kinds of plants? I think there's 3. There's the avocado tree, there's the black bean bush, and then there's the tree of emotions. So all 3 of those are included in the plant section. And then this is the time section. So we have the big calendar stones that actually look like the ones at Beech Hill. Very happy about that. All of the harvest knives, and then the masks that I imagined would be like warrior masks over in this area. And then I eventually find the skeletons to put in that space as well. I have a Pakal skull. Like, how perfect is that? It's an Amazonite skull. That's what the gem is called in The Sims 4, Amazonite or something like that, Amazonite. And it looks a lot like Pakal. I mean, it's more blue than green, but I loved having the Pakal skull there. It's about as close as I could get to the jade carving in my mind. Because especially like the jade skull that we see at the end, or the skull of Pakal that we see towards the end of the game, was very happy with that. There were times when I would like pause and save and like go eat lunch, or just got up and refresh the game or something like that, and different parts of the build got deleted, like the terrain paint out the back got deleted at one point, and a couple of the artifacts got deleted, even though I turned move objects on when I came back into the lot. So that's kind of a pro tip. Before you place the lot, turn on the move objects cheat. That's bb.moveobjects, shift control C, and then type in bb.moveobjects, because otherwise things might get deleted. And even if you do that, things might still get deleted. So I apologize if that's the case. Hopefully too many things won't get deleted if you decide to download this from the gallery. Now adding kind of the final touches on the plant section, I just tried to make it really lush and fill it in with things that reminded me of plants and like how you would gather plants. So there's also kind of like some storage containers. I liked that idea a lot. And then the lotus flowers, anything that reminded me of that. Oh yeah, and here we've got all of the skeletons from Jungle Adventure to show like the different kinds, and the baskets, and there's dolls. There's just all sorts of really cool things in Debug that your Sims can buy from the souvenir stalls, or that they can find through adventuring in the temples areas. So yeah, again, anything that you can find in Jungle Adventure, you can find in this museum. And I think that your Sims can't touch things or like steal things that are in these glass cases, because they came with Jungle Adventure and Get to Work, and I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be able to access those. So hopefully Sims can't like randomly steal from the museum. But I mean, if they can, it would mimic the game Secret of the Scarlet Hand quite well. So at least there's that. That could always be fun. That could always be a good time. Coming up on finishing the exhibits here, and then after that we move on to kind of fulfilling the storage space and the lab space, and then Beech Hill will be completed, and then we'll do a fun little tour. I've been saying it so many times, but I'm just really happy with how this turned out. And I'm happy that it didn't like take me a ridiculous amount of time too. It's so hard doing giant builds, because I feel like a lot of us get in our heads about like, oh my gosh, it's so intimidating. How could I possibly make this work? At least a lot of people I know who think like me with like perfectionistic tendencies and whatnot. It can be really intimidating to just get started, but once you do get started, that's when things can kind of get better. Just refilling in the terrain paint here because again, it deleted when I saved the game and came back in. Super annoying glitch that has been going on for forever in The Sims 4, and it's super inconsistent too, like it doesn't happen all the time. But yeah, you get to see me do a little bit of terrain painting, a little bit of like coloring book action here. And then the random room on the side of the artifacts. Oh, we love to see it. We love to see it, don't we, folks? So, what have you all been up to lately? What's new in your lives? I hope your work and school lives are not as stressful as mine has been lately, but if they are, I am sorry. It is tough. We are in tough times, and stress is ever present, and if you need a break, know that you deserve a break, and you can take one as much as you can, as often as you possibly can. Like I said, I'm just so grateful for this spring break time. I plan on going skiing. I plan on doing a little bit of snowshoeing while there is still snow. Things are starting to melt here in Minnesota, but it's our tease spring. Like, it won't actually be spring until late May. This is like what happens in Minnesota, where there will be a time in March where things will kind of like ebb and flow for a little while, and then we'll get like a giant snowstorm in April. It'll be like 3 feet of snow, and then it'll stick around for a long time, and then all of a sudden like June will happen, and then it'll be summer. It's a totally weird time. But anyway, I plan on enjoying the snow while we still have it, going out and doing some skiing and snowshoeing. I plan on reading quite a bit. I'm currently reading The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, the author of The Starless Sea. The Night Circus, I believe, is her first book, and Starless Sea is what I read first, so that's how I was introduced to her work. But it's really cool. I'm really enjoying it. It's more of a fantasy kind of type thing. But not like pure fantasy. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of its own thing. But it's really good. I really enjoy that. So I'll be doing some reading. If any of you are reading, let me know what you're reading right now. If you have any good historical fiction recommendations, let me know. That is by far my favorite genre to read. I'm a big ol' historical fiction fan. What else am I going to be doing? I'm going to be sleeping a lot, hopefully. Sleep is good. Sleep is grand. I will be sleeping as much as I can. It sounded like Dr. Seuss, but that's okay. Yeah, I think those are my plans. That's pretty much my plan for my spring break. Anyway, we are now doing the lab space where Henrik Vanderheun works and where Sunny June used to work. And I like how the lab space turned out. I think it actually looks quite similar to the lab space in Secret of the Scarlet Hand. I mostly just fill it up with artifacts that are not fully ready yet, so they're like in the process of being uncovered or authenticated. And I put another archaeology table in here, so it's a space that's ready for your Sims. Then there's the nice little desk space, and then there's a bunch of get-to-work items that don't actually function, but just kind of look like science items. They're just like vaguely scientific type items, and it works. It makes it look like a lab space. I think it matches the color scheme of the game quite well. It's the kind of like brightest room in the entire build, which is kind of funny because it's just this like blank white space. But yeah, the lab space where Henrik works. Henrik has a very similar personality to Mr. Wizard Kitten. So Henrik, therefore, is one of my favorite characters. Always has been. Even before I met Mr. Wizard Kitten, I have always enjoyed Henrik Vanderheun. He's a good time. He's the good guy. You ever hit those moments in a speed build where you're like, okay, what else do I say now? Because that's where we're at. Continuing to add in some get-to-work clutter, a couple of items here and there that make the space feel a little bit more realistic, like the items above the doors that I feel like I don't get to use hardly at all. And this little setup I was actually kind of proud of. I put this skull kind of x-ray machine that came with Get to Work and is meant for the doctor career, but then I put one of the Salvadorada skeletons in here and then a camera, so it's almost like the camera is connected to the screen and Henrik can zoom in on different parts of the skeleton and kind of look at it more closely and analyze it more closely. I just really enjoyed that idea, and then there's like an unauthenticated skull behind it. I don't know, I just thought that was fun, and it filled in the space quite a bit, made it look like someone was actively using the space and making it more functional. So yeah, very happy with that little detail. And there's so many random things around here. Like, your Sims could probably steal some of these. Like, there's just a random mineral sitting on the counter, and then there's a couple random artifacts that your Sim could probably just take, or like this fossil or this Amazonite crystal. So if you do decide to make this a museum lot, you might want to lock the doors so random Sims can't go in there and steal things. Otherwise, they will probably try. And then this is the storage room. Now, in Secret of the Scarlet Hand, obviously the floor plan is different. Both the lab and the storage room are to the right of the exhibit space, and there's like a hallway in between connecting them. That would have kind of thrown off the floor plan that I was going for with this and would have made the outside of the building really asymmetrical, which I felt like didn't work. So I decided to just put the storage room over here and design it very similarly to how it is designed in the game. So we have the walls of shelves, basically any box item that I could find in the catalog I used. And I put a bunch of counterfeit artifacts over on this table here because I thought that was really funny and kind of a nice throwback to the game of having a couple counterfeits or like problems in the system. So I have a couple of those, and they're really funny looking. I like how they did it in The Sims because they're like painted really obnoxiously and they're like very obviously fakes. But it's just funny. It's a good time. Lots of these crates from cats and dogs too, all sorts of good things. We basically just clutter this space all the way up. And once we're done cluttering this space up, I'm going to take you on a tour of Beech Hill Museum by bringing a Sim here on vacation. So I think let's go ahead and cut to that part so you can get a nice tour of the build. All right, fellow detectives, time for a tour of the completed Beech Hill Museum situated here in scenic Salvadorada. For the landscaping, we have a lot of Salvadoradian plants that are supposed to help the museum blend into the environment. And then as we get closer to the museum, we have kind of this grand entrance here with hopefully lots of Salvadoradian details. We have the plants, we have the totems, and all sorts of decorations. It's a very grand entrance, which is what I was going for, what I was hoping for. Ah, good, we have some tourists coming to the museum. I hope you guys like it. Okay, so let's go ahead and head in to the museum itself. So first of all, your Sims will come into kind of this little entry alcove where they can sit and hang out and kind of just begin to immerse themselves in the color schemes of the museum itself. Then we have this entry space designed off of the entry space of Beech Hill with another kind of grand entryway, a little check-in area, and then some decorations to kind of get us into the mood of the space. Over to this side, we have Joanna Riggs's office, kind of her little workspace and desk, a archaeology station right over here that she would work at to authenticate artifacts, and then the rest of the office, kind of a sitting area, a gathering area for meetings and such. And then over to this side, we have a little alcove before heading into the public bathrooms. Pretty simple, you know, your standard bathrooms in a community lot space. And then over here we have a storage room. So this is kind of like the cleaning room, the supplies that people might need for the museum, things like that to take care of it. And then if we go over here, this is now the main area of the museum. So we have the Beech Hill Pyramid in the back here, designed to look more like a not an interactive pyramid like the one in the game, but more just kind of like a giant statue or sculpture. This is our first exhibit where we have all of the plants of Silva Dorada celebrating the plant life and the things that would be required in order to gather that plant life. Next to that, we have a calendar kind of area. So this is exploring kind of the art of Silva Dorada and how they would keep time. So of course we have our classic calendar stones here. Careful when you carry them, they are heavy. Over in this exhibit, we have kind of the weaponry of Silva Dorada. So we have the skeletons with their spears, we have harvest knives and masks that would be used for battle as well. And then over on the other side, over here we have kind of the materials and the resources of Silva Dorada, so lots of gems, and then again things that would be used to kind of collect them. And right next to it we have an exhibit dedicated to King Pakal. So of course we have our Pakal skull right here, some other skulls, and some of the most valuable kind of pieces. And obviously the King Pakal is just completely open. Very easy to find. And then here in this space we have the animal life of Silva Dorada. So we have kind of fossils, the golden frogs that are valued in Salvadoradian culture, and then the fish that are specific to Silva Dorada. Honestly, very, very happy with how all of the exhibits turned out. I really like the idea of celebrating different ideas of the Salvadoradian culture. So then over on this side to the left, we have the storage room. So this is where all of the artifacts would be kept. All of the things that are being shipped to the museum would be either stored in here until they are able to be authenticated or moved to the correct place. And we do have some counterfeit art over here in style of the museum, of course. And then out in the main entrance area, we do have kind of these little walkways, these tunnels to help you get outside. And then over to the right here is the lab. So your Sims are not supposed to come in here during visiting hours, madam, but this is the lab space. So this is where we're getting things authenticated. This is where we're doing some research and just all sorts of get to work and Salvadoradian type items in this space as well, meant to look like a realistic lab. So then if we go outside, if we go down one of these tunnels here, we head out to the beautiful garden. And honestly, I am most happy with how this garden space turned out. You come out right away with all these plants surrounding you and the monolith in the middle. Of course, we go down these stairs here, and then your Sims can wander around and look at all of the exhibits that are in this outdoor area as well, meant to light up. Definitely at night looks the most like Beech Hill, and very, very happy with how this space turned out. I feel like the landscaping looks really lush and beautiful. I love the jungle sounds when we're outside. I love the monolith and how realistic that looks to the game. And the Latin music playing in the background also adds to the entire space as well, making it feel really authentic. So there you have it, fellow detectives. This is my completed version of Beech Hill Museum from Nancy Drew's Secret of the Scarlet Hand. I do hope that you enjoyed this build. If you did, please feel free to let me know in the comments section down below and like the video and give me any suggestions for future videos. The only big build that I have left from the Nancy Drew series is Castle Finster, so know that that will be coming. But if you have any smaller build suggestions that you would like to see, please let me know that as well. But as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.